Hello everyone, my name's Jack, welcome to the video, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my experience of going through the Civil Service Success Profiles interview process. That is a mouthful. So I've gone through this process several times myself, and I've also helped others go through the process. And along the way I've kind of picked up, nuggets here and there, so hopefully this video is going to give you a good overview of what to expect when it comes to an interview within the civil service. If you do find this video valuable, I'm going to be doing some follow-up videos in the future where I talk more in depth about certain topics such as seeing the bigger picture, strength questions, etc. But hopefully this video will be able to give you an overall structure of what to expect when it comes to your interview in the civil service. If you do find this video helpful, I would suggest maybe just share it with someone who you know who's got an interview within the civil service. Hopefully it'll provide some value, and let me know down in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. So you may be wondering, what is the Civil Service Success Profiles process? Essentially, this was brought in, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, and it was designed to replace the old competency style of interviews in order to make the process a lot more conversational, kind of like this right now. So prior to the interview, the first thing I recommend you do is to read the Civil Service Overview for Success Profiles. I'll link a document down below in the description. There's a couple of criteria that candidates can be assessed on when it comes to interview, and these include behaviours, strengths, experience, your ability and your technical capability, maybe if you're going for an analytical role or likewise. Prior to the interview, and usually at the job advert stage, you'll be told what behaviours that you're being assessed against. So for instance, in my experience, I've found that there's usually between 3 and 4 behaviours being assessed at interview. These behaviours are things such as seeing the bigger picture, delivering at pace, changing and improving, communicating and influencing, etc. Sometimes you may be asked to do a presentation for one of these behaviours. So for instance, I went for an interview a few years ago when I initially joined the civil service, and I had to do a presentation regarding seeing the bigger picture. According to the guidance, behaviours are things that we do in our role regularly and we do them well. So this could be things such as communicating, changing and improving, delivering at pace, etc. Strengths are the things that we do regularly and that motivate us. Occasionally, if like myself, you're an analyst, you may go for a technical role and you may be asked technical questions at interview. And these are designed to kind of dive deeper into maybe a piece of analysis or some technical work that you've done in order for the panel to gain an understanding of whether you're technically good enough for the role. Once you know that you've got an interview and you know the 3 to 4 behaviours that you're being assessed against, what I would really recommend is practicing 2 sets of questions. So strengths questions and behaviours questions. You will be told what type of questions you have before the interview, so make note. If it says strength questions, then you probably want to practice some strength questions. Let's look at the structure of the interview from my experience. Again, this probably varies across all the government departments, but generally over 3 or 4 interviews now, this is what I find to be the case. The first thing that will be asked is an icebreaker question. So something along the lines of, what motivates you or what do you enjoy doing? And you're not assessed on this, but it is designed to just, kind of break the ice, especially at the moment where interviews are on Teams, Skype, Google Meets, etc. It can often be quite awkward to just kind of join a call and start a conversation really cold. So these icebreaker questions are kind of designed just to make people feel more comfortable and get the conversation flowing. Usually after the icebreaker question, you're going to go through each of the behaviours one by one. Again, this may vary, but in my experience, people tend to focus on one behaviour and then ask a multiple of questions on that certain behaviour. So if you have 3 behaviours, for instance, and the first one is communicating and influencing, your first set of questions will most likely be about that behaviour, communicating and influencing. And generally, from my experience, I've found that people like to start with strength questions, then move on to behaviour questions. However, I have been to an interview in the past where they asked me all strength questions at once and then moved on to behaviours. So again, just try and be as prepared as you can, but relax when it comes to the interview. Just take your time. If you need to take a pause, if you need to ask someone to repeat the question, by all means do it. So now we've talked about the structure a little bit, let's chat about strength questions. Strength questions, I think you either love them or hate them because they're designed to be very, very vague. A strength question might be along the lines of, what is good communication? And then you're expected to talk about this for, I think, 3 minutes. I think they're actually timed. I will double check, but I think they're timed. And the interview panel is not allowed to probe you. So if you ask them a question, you'll notice that they probably either just kind of shrug or they just say, whatever you think. This is on purpose and it is designed to get you talking about a specific topic and understand whether this thing is actually a strength of yours. What I would recommend for strength questions is to bring some examples into the mix, because I've been on a few interview panels recently and I found that sometimes people give quite vague statements like, yes, of course I'm a good communicator. But imagine you're on the interview panel and 10 people all say, yes, I'm a good communicator, yes, I'm a good communicator. If you're the one who brings in examples such as, yes, I'm a good communicator, and then break it down, verbally, written, presentation, the panel have something to remember you by, and it automatically makes you stand out. So I would 100% recommend bringing in past experiences, even past roles if you're new to the civil service, because I think that can make you really stand out when it comes to strength questions. Strength questions, in my opinion, is really your chance to kind of sell yourself on that certain thing, whether it's communication, strategic vision, changing and improving. It's your chance to really talk about and bring in examples of why you're good at this thing and why you enjoy doing this thing. So keep it fairly brief to around 3 minutes, but don't just say, yes, I'm a good communicator, and then stop talking, because you won't be probed and it doesn't give the panel an insight into whether this behavior is actually a strength of yours. Imagine you're in the interview now, you've done your strength questions and you're thinking, right, I'm going to move on to behaviors. So behavior questions, from my experience, there's generally 2 types of questions. So you have a situational question and then you have a past experience question. The past experience question is similar to the old competency styles that we all know, such as, tell me about a time, Tell me about a time when you've had to deliver at pace. Could be one for delivering at pace. These questions, I think we're all hopefully familiar with, and generally people recommend using the STAR approach. If you're not familiar with the STAR approach, it stands for situation, task, action, and the result. That is how I would recommend that you structure your answer to these questions. However, please, I cannot stress this enough, remember to say the result of what you've done, because I think a lot of the time people get to the end and they forget about the actual result of the work that they've done. I would recommend potentially switching it to STRA. Situation, task, result, and then the action, because that ensures that you include the result. Then if you run over on the action, that doesn't really matter as much because we know what the result of that action was. I'm going to make some more videos in the future about how to structure these behavior questions. So if you think that would be helpful, please let me know in the comments below. Moving on to the other behavior question, and the one that I think the majority of people, including myself, find really tricky, is the situational type behavior question. I want you to imagine that you're in this situation. What would you do? And I know, because I've done it myself and I've helped others and they've said they've done it, and I've heard from other people who do it, we all bring up a past example. And while that's, I think, okay, I would really recommend that you don't bring up a past example, because the interview panel is looking to see how would you react in this situation. There's a different question for past examples. The situation question is designed to be, right, can you think on your feet? If you're in this situation, how would you react? Because what we're really interested in is seeing your thought process. So an example of a situational question might be, you've just been given an urgent deadline that's needed by the end of the day. How do you prioritize your other work? What you can say, which someone told me previously, which really helps me shift my brain, is say, actually, I've had this situation in the past, and what I found helpful was to do this. Because you kind of reference the example in your mind, but you think, no, actually, this is my thought process. I'm not going to talk about the example. That is what I would recommend for situational type questions. It's designed to show your thought process and show the interview panel that you can react in these situations. Which brings me on to the final point of this video, and I think the most important point. With these success profiles interviews, the wording of the questions is sometimes very nuanced, and I think what I would really recommend you do is listen to the question, because I think sometimes we have a tendency to answer the question that we've prepped for, when in actual fact, you need to answer the question that you've been asked. That's something that I've been guilty of in the past. I've kind of prepped for this example in my head. However, when it's got to the interview, I've given that example, even though it might not be the actual question. I think it's really important to remember, listen to the question. I remember when I was in school, I always used to get told off because I didn't read the question. Similar thing here, listen to the question, understand what they're asking for, and then tailor your answer using that. So that is it for this video, guys. I've given you an overall structure of a civil service success profiles interview, and I hope that this really helps you. I wasn't planning on going into much detail in this video. However, I'm going to go into detail in further videos, so stay tuned for them. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any particular topics that you would find helpful. Other than that, I hope you all have a great day. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you soon.